Picture this moment. You walk through the door, completely worn out, drained both inside and out. You don't even have the strength to take off your shoes. You lie down, close your eyes, and in the depth of your exhaustion, a quiet whisper rises from your soul. I should pray, you think. But then another voice breaks in, cool, stern. Are you really going to pray like that, lying down? Do you think God will listen to you in that position? And suddenly, a question arises, one that has troubled countless believers. Is it wrong to pray while lying down? Am I offending God without meaning to? From an early age, we were taught that prayer means kneeling, folding our hands, showing reverence. But what if you're sick? What if pain keeps you from moving? What if your soul wants to reach out, but your body simply can't follow? What you're about to hear might bring you peace, or it might challenge something you've long believed. Today, I want to share with you something Pope Francis, who has led the Church with warmth and openness, offered from his pastoral experience on this deeply human and spiritual question. Stay with me, because what you're about to hear could forever change how you pray and how you approach God. If you've ever felt like your prayers weren't good enough because you were too tired to kneel, write in the comments, "Teach me to pray from the heart." That simple act may open your spirit to receive something truly profound. In his journey alongside those who are fragile and burdened, Francis has shared insights that reach far deeper than most people realize. Insights meant for those moments when you're just too weak, too weary, or too unwell to pray the way you were taught. And now, here is the first powerful truth on this question. Prayer comes from the heart, not from the body. When your body is exhausted, even the quiet lifting of your soul toward God becomes a beautiful prayer. God isn't shocked by your weakness. In fact, He draws even closer when He sees you praying with the little you have left. Sometimes all we can offer is a sigh, a tear, a thought whispered silently while lying down in utter fatigue. Can you picture the heart of a father watching his sick child trying to speak despite the pain? Wouldn't he be deeply moved by such a gesture of love? Wouldn't he lean in even closer to hear that faint whisper? That's how God sees your prayers when you're too tired to kneel. The idea that your body has to be in a specific position for your prayer to count is exactly the kind of rigid thinking Francis has gently urged us to reconsider through the lens of the gospel. With his deep understanding of the mystery of prayer, he reminds us that God sees the heart, not the outward form. Few realize that many men and women of deep faith spent countless nights enduring intense physical suffering. Their bodies failed them, fever consumed them, and the pain grew so overwhelming at times that they couldn't even stay on their knees. But did they stop praying in those moments? Absolutely not. Their prayer shifted, adapted, but never ceased. During those long nights of unbearable pain, lying on their simple beds, they discovered something remarkable about prayer. Often, it is precisely in our weakest moments that the connection with God becomes clearer, more direct, more intimate. Prayer becomes the strength of the human soul and the tender vulnerability of God. What does that mean? It means that when we come to God stripped of pretense, without ceremony or polished words, just the raw truth of our need, something profound happens. God bends low with love to meet us, drawn to our honesty and our need. Imagine prayer as a conversation with someone you love deeply. When you're speaking with someone dear to your heart, does it really matter whether you're standing, sitting, or lying down? What truly matters is the presence, the attentiveness, the sincerity. Francis often used this beautiful image. He would say that prayer is like the breath of the soul. Think about that for a moment. We breathe no matter our posture, sitting, lying down, walking. Our breathing doesn't depend on how we hold our body. In the same way, the soul's prayer isn't limited by our physical stance, but flows from the openness of our heart. Over his many years as a confessor, Francis met countless people burdened by guilt, convinced they weren't praying right because they hadn't followed a certain formula or position. To a woman who reproached herself for praying while lying down during illness, he gently said, "My daughter, do you believe God fails to recognize the voice of his children simply because they are lying down? The one who created the body understands its limits." There is another quiet truth about prayer that few talk about. It moves through seasons, much like the year brings spring, summer, fall, and winter. There are vibrant seasons when prayer flows easily, when we kneel in God's presence with strength and fervor. But there are also seasons of dryness, illness, and deep fatigue. These too are part of the sacred rhythm, like winter, which may seem barren but quietly nurtures the promise of spring. Our prayers during weakness are planting seeds for spiritual growth we cannot yet see. Many saints experience their most profound revelations during times of illness or physical exhaustion. Teresa of Avila, John of the Cross, Thérèse of Lisieux, and, of course, Francis himself. This is no coincidence. There is a hidden spiritual fruitfulness that blooms in those moments when the body gives way and only the soul remains bare before God. He often said, "Don't be concerned with how you pray. What matters is the truth in your encounter with God." This brings to mind Don Manuel, an old man I once met in a small town. He had been a man of unshakable faith all his life, praying on his knees every single night. But at 92, severe arthritis made kneeling impossible. The first night he had to pray sitting down, he wept with frustration. The second night, he tried to kneel despite the pain, but couldn't manage. On the third night, he surrendered, praying from his bed, speaking to God as one might to an old friend. That night, Don Manuel told me with shining eyes, "I felt God's presence like never before, as if I'd spent my whole life standing respectfully at a closed door, and now, in my weakness, that door swung wide open." This brings us to one of the most powerful teachings of all. Sometimes our physical limitations aren't hindrances to prayer, but doorways into a deeper, more authentic, more essential kind of prayer. Tradition rightly teaches that our posture can support our inner readiness. Kneeling is a beautiful act of reverence and humility, but we must remember, these are tools, not the goal. They serve prayer. They are not prayer itself. If you can kneel, then kneel. It is a noble way to honor God. But if you can't, don't worry for even a moment. The knee God cares most about is the one inside the heart. And this leads us to a key point. When we think our prayer is worthless because it doesn't follow certain outward forms, we fall into the very trap Jesus warned against, the obsession with appearances over the sincerity of the heart. There is a profound mystery in Christian spirituality that speaks directly to this. God draws especially near to us in our most fragile moments. This isn't abstract theology. It runs through all of Scripture and the lives of the saints. Think of the powerful scenes of prayer in the Bible. Jesus, face down in Gethsemane, sweating blood, so weak that an angel came to strengthen him. He wasn't in a temple, standing tall with arms lifted high, but collapsed on the ground, reaching the edge of human suffering. Yet, was there ever a more heartfelt prayer? Or think of King David, who often prayed from his bed, worn down by illness or exhaustion. In Psalm 6, he cries, "I am worn out from groaning. All night long I flood my bed with weeping and drench my couch with tears." And that prayer, offered from bed, was not only heard, it became sacred scripture, offering comfort to millions across generations. Francis himself experienced this truth in a deeply personal way. One night, while gravely ill and unable to move, he found himself so weak that he couldn't even form a prayer. All he could do in that moment was whisper the name, Jesus. Later, he confided to a fellow Franciscan, "I have never felt Jesus so close as I did then. It was as if my entire life of prayer had led me to that one simple breath." This moment in Francis's life reveals something profound. Sometimes the most powerful prayer is the simplest, stripped of words, born from the raw recognition that we have nothing to offer but our need for God. Some years ago, I visited Mrs. Esperanza, a woman who had suffered a major stroke and was completely bedridden. She couldn't speak and could barely move her eyes. Her daughter shared something remarkable with me. "Since Mom became like this, there's been a different feeling in this room. Everyone who comes in senses a peace we can't explain." When I asked her to tell me more, she said through tears, "My mother has always been a woman of deep prayer. Now that she can't say a single word, I believe her prayer has grown purer, deeper. It's as if her whole being has become one continuous prayer." Isn't that exactly what Francis showed through his own experience? That sometimes, when we can no longer pray the way we used to, we discover a more essential, truer kind of prayer. There's a quote attributed to him that I hold close to my heart. "God doesn't count the number of words in your prayers. He weighs the love with which you say them. It doesn't matter if those words are spoken from a church pew or whispered from a hospital bed. What matters is the love, the honesty, the surrender behind them." Paul once wrote something deeply revealing in his letter to the Romans. "The Spirit helps us in our weakness, for we do not know how to pray as we ought. But the Spirit himself intercedes for us with groans too deep for words." Isn't that incredible? Even when we don't know how to pray, even when we're too worn out or too lost, the Holy Spirit takes our weakness and turns it into a perfect prayer. And this brings us to a second profound truth. Often, it's right in our moments of greatest weakness that God reveals himself most powerfully. Francis spoke of this many times throughout his ministry. His most intimate experiences with God didn't always happen during grand liturgical celebrations, but often in times of personal frailty, when life called him to embrace pain and full surrender. Ask yourself honestly, when have you felt closest to God? Was it when everything was going well and you could follow your devotions without fail? Or was it during those dark nights of crisis, pain, and exhaustion, when all you could manage was to cry out, "Help me, Lord"? For many of us, the deepest encounters with God have come when we had no strength left, no words, no formulas, only our naked need. This is the liberating message Pope Francis reminds us of. Don't be troubled if there are days when you can't kneel to pray. Don't feel guilty if illness, exhaustion, or age forces you to pray from your bed. Never think for a second that those prayers are any less meaningful. To pray is to speak with God, from the heart, Francis teaches. And the heart doesn't depend on posture to speak. In fact, there is great wisdom in realizing that our vulnerability is not a barrier to prayer. It's often the very path to a deeper one. When we are healthy and in control, sometimes our prayers can carry a subtle pride, a sense of self-reliance. But when we are weak and we pray from that place of limitation, there is no room for pretense. That's when we truly understand what Paul discovered. When I am weak, then I am strong. Now that we've grasped this beautiful truth about prayer in times of weakness, how can we make it part of our daily spiritual life? The Pope has shared some practical guidance that we can apply in different situations. For those nights when weariness overwhelms you and you can barely stay awake, he suggested a simple practice. Before falling asleep, place your heart in God's hands. There's no need for many words. Just say, "Lord, here I am. You know everything I need. I give myself to you." This quiet prayer, said sincerely from your bed, holds immense value in God's eyes. In moments of illness, when pain seems to drain every bit of strength, Francis encouraged us to unite that suffering with Christ's on the cross. "Don't waste your pain," he often said. "Offer it up as a prayer for someone in need." In this way, even groans of pain can become powerful prayers of intercession. A sick woman who quietly says, "Jesus, this is for you," as she endures suffering, is offering a prayer just as powerful as the most solemn liturgy. For older adults who can no longer kneel as they once did, he offered a special word of encouragement. Let your whole life become a continuous prayer. Every breath, every heartbeat, every moment can be offered to God as an act of love. This might be the most profound kind of prayer, when our entire existence becomes a silent, unending conversation with God, beyond words or physical gestures. And for the exhausted parents who often fall asleep while trying to pray, he gave comforting words. The sleep of a tired mother, offered to God, is a beautiful prayer. God understands the language of sacrificial love. One of the most transformative practices he shared was something he called the prayer of the present moment. It simply means recognizing God's presence in whatever situation you're in and offering a short word of love, gratitude, or plea. You can do this lying in a hospital bed, stuck in traffic, waiting in line, or even while doing everyday chores. "God is always with you," Francis would say. "Speak to him as you would to a friend walking beside you." Another of his down-to-earth teachings was that the depth of our prayer matters more than how long we pray. It's better to say one Our Father with your whole heart than to rattle off 100 prayers without attention or love. That thought brings comfort to those who, because of illness or fatigue, can't manage long times of prayer. A simple phrase like "Jesus, I love you," or "Lord, have mercy," spoken sincerely from bed, may hold more value than hours of routine prayer said without heart. He also taught us to appreciate what he referred to as the prayer of waiting. In those dry spiritual times when prayer feels like it's bouncing off the ceiling, when we can't even find the words, simply sitting in God's presence becomes a deep form of prayer. He would sometimes say, "All God asks is that we stay still before him, like a child resting in their father's arms, saying nothing at all." Imagine how that understanding can change those sleepless nights when pain or worry keeps you up. Instead of frustration, those hours can become sacred space for meeting with God. You don't need perfect words or postures. Just recognize he is there, open your heart, and let the silence speak for you. This freeing view of prayer can completely reshape how we relate to God. It releases us from the pressure of getting it right and welcomes us into a more honest, ongoing connection with the one who made us. Francis said more than once that prayer should feel as natural as breathing. Just as we breathe in any position and at any time, our prayers can flow freely through every part of life. What a gift that is. You don't have to wait until everything is just right, or until you're in the perfect place or position to reach out to God. He is always near, always listening, always open to the quietest whisper of your soul. And now we come to the most powerful truth Francis shared about prayer, especially for those who feel physically limited. It's something that's often overlooked, yet it holds the power to entirely transform your spiritual life. Through his years of pastoral care and closeness with the weak and suffering, the Pope understood that what we often see as our greatest obstacles in prayer might actually be our greatest chances to grow closer to God. This is what he would say to those who came to him with open hearts. When all you can do is offer your weakness to God, you are giving him the most precious gift, your complete trust in his mercy. This is the heart of what we've uncovered today. Praying while lying down, when your body is worn out, isn't merely acceptable. It can be a deeply moving act of faith and humility. It's a way of embracing our full dependence on God, acknowledging that we are limited creatures before an infinite Creator. Let's take a moment to recall the truths we've walked through. First, prayer begins in the heart, not in physical form. Francis showed us that God sees the purity of our intentions, not the perfection of our outward actions. Second, our weakest moments can become the most honest and powerful prayers we ever offer. When we stand before God with nothing but our need, our prayer becomes stripped of pride and free from self-importance. 3. God has a mysterious way of drawing near when we feel the most vulnerable, the most in need of Him. Like a loving father running to his injured child, He bends close to us in our weakness. In those fragile moments, every part of our day can become prayer. Even our physical struggles become chances to draw closer to Him. Dear friends, if this message has reached your heart, if it has eased your guilt or comforted your doubts about prayer, I invite you to share your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever woken up with a feeling that something is missing, a sense of unrest that you can't quite explain? Today, I want to tell you about 3 powerful words Pope Francis urged us to say before going to sleep, words that could truly change the way you live. If you are searching for lasting peace and spiritual protection, this is something you need to hear before time runs out. Francis, with his deep pastoral wisdom, offered a teaching that many people overlook, but that holds incredible value. These 3 small words carry the strength to shape how you sleep, how you wake, and how you walk through life each day. If your spirit feels burdened or something feels incomplete within you, this message is meant for you. Before I reveal these 3 life-changing words, I want you to know that thousands of people have already experienced meaningful changes simply by adopting this practice Francis shared. It is no accident that you're hearing this now. If you believe in the power of these teachings, write in the comments, "I'm ready to receive this blessing." What I'm about to share isn't just a feel-good phrase. These are 3 intentional actions born from years of deep spiritual practice and real-life stories of transformation. Each word holds its own purpose. When spoken from the heart before sleep, they invite a powerful sense of protection into your life. If you haven't yet, take a moment to click subscribe and turn on notifications. Why is this important? Because every week I share meaningful teachings like this that are making a difference in people's lives. You won't want to miss what's next. Worries, stress, and pain often feel heavier at night. But once you begin to use these 3 words, you'll notice the change almost immediately. Your sleep will be more peaceful. Your mornings will begin with a fresh sense of hope. Your days will carry new light. Throughout his journey, Pope Francis devoted himself to helping others find peace and divine shelter. Among his many teachings, one stands out clearly: how important our final words are before we fall asleep. This practice I'm sharing doesn't just improve your sleep, it brings peace into all areas of your life. Many of us live rushed and crowded lives. We're running from task to task, balancing work, family, and constant responsibilities. All of this builds up in our minds and weighs on us by the time night comes. Francis understood this reality. He saw people of faith, people like you and me, carrying silent burdens all the way to bedtime. Have you ever wondered why so many wake up tired, even after a full night's rest, or why your heart sometimes feels heavy in the morning? He came to see that it's because we don't take time to properly end our day. It's like leaving the door to your home open at night. Anything can enter. Francis taught that these 3 words serve as a master key that locks out what should not enter and opens the way for divine protection. These aren't magic words, they are meaningful choices. When we say them with sincerity, they can change our nights and reshape our lives. Think of your mind as a room. Throughout the day, it fills with all sorts of thoughts: fear, hope, joy, frustration. When evening comes, that space needs to be put in order. The 3 words Francis offered help guide that process, restoring a sense of calm and clarity. The final moments before sleep hold special power. That is when your heart is most open and your mind most ready to receive. Francis knew this deeply. The last thoughts we carry into sleep continue to move through our soul throughout the night. That is why he placed such importance on those final words. Before I share these 3 powerful words with you, there is something vital you need to understand. Their strength does not lie in mechanical repetition. He emphasized that they must come from the heart, with sincerity and genuine intention. Only then can they truly shape your life. The first word Pope Francis encouraged us to say before going to bed is thank you. But this is not about a routine or superficial kind of gratitude. He revealed a deeper way of being thankful, one that can quietly reshape our lives as we sleep. When we express gratitude at night, we are recognizing all the good that exists around us, even when life feels difficult. He explained that many of us become so focused on our problems that we overlook the blessings we still have. It is like wearing glasses that block out everything but the struggles. Do you know why he was so persistent about giving thanks before bed? Because he came to understand that gratitude changes the state of our spirit. When we give thanks, the mind shifts, the heart becomes more open, and life begins to look different. It is like turning on a light in a dim room and seeing everything more clearly. The way he taught gratitude involves 3 essential elements. First, we thank God for the obvious gifts: family, home, work, and health. Second, and this is often the hardest part, we give thanks for the difficulties we face. Yes, even those. He taught that hardships carry hidden opportunities for growth. The third, and perhaps most moving step, is giving thanks for what lies ahead. By doing this, we show deep trust in God's plan, even before it unfolds. It is like planting hope for tomorrow. How do we actually practice this? It is more simple than it seems. Before sleep, take a few quiet moments to reflect on your day. Think of 3 things you are grateful for. They might be big or small, like a warm hug, a good meal, a solution to a problem, or simply the gift of breath. He taught that gratitude should be specific. Instead of saying, thank you for everything, name particular moments. For example, thank you for my son's call this morning. Thank you for the strength to face that challenge at work. Or, thank you for the peace I feel right now. When we practice this kind of focused gratitude, something begins to change. Our brain starts to notice more reasons to be thankful. It is like a muscle that grows stronger with use. He observed that people who gave thanks before sleep began noticing more and more blessings throughout their days. Gratitude also helps us sleep better. When we rest with a grateful heart, our sleep becomes deeper and more renewing. He said it is because gratitude releases the unnecessary burdens we tend to carry. One helpful habit he recommended is keeping a small notebook by the bed. Before sleep, write down 3 things you are thankful for. They do not need to be major events. Sometimes the most meaningful blessings appear in small details like a kind smile, a beam of sunlight, or a warm cup of coffee. This simple practice of gratitude opens the way to peaceful rest and a hopeful awakening. It is the beginning of transformation, not only during the night, but across our entire life. The second word he taught us to say before sleeping is sorry. This act is essential for freeing the heart from what prevents us from truly resting. He understood how often we go to bed carrying weight we no longer need. Have you ever noticed how small mistakes from the day can feel overwhelming once the lights are out? He explained that our conscience naturally seeks peace, and that peace only arrives when we are honest with ourselves and with God. But be careful, this is not about punishing ourselves with guilt. What he taught was that admitting our wrongs should come from a place of compassion. It is like gently washing a wound. It may sting a little, but it is part of healing. Pope Francis shared a deeply human and layered approach to the practice of forgiveness in his pastoral journey. The first step, he explained, is to honestly acknowledge our own failings. This doesn't mean compiling an exhaustive list of every minor slip, but rather recognizing those thoughts, words, or actions we know were not right. It's a moment to be sincere with ourselves, without excuses. The second step is to ask for forgiveness with a genuine heart. Pope Francis reminded us that this is not about reciting set phrases or following a formula. It's about speaking directly and truthfully with God, acknowledging our shortcomings and expressing a heartfelt desire to grow. It's like speaking with a loving Father who already knows us inside and out. But there's a third step that often gets overlooked: the ability to forgive ourselves. The Pope noticed that while many people are able to seek forgiveness from God and others, they continue to carry the burden of self-judgment and harsh inner criticism. This step is essential in completing the process of forgiveness. How can we bring this practice into our evening routine? Take a few quiet minutes before bed to reflect on your day, not with the harshness of a judge, but with the gentleness of a wise and understanding friend. Ask yourself, what could I have handled better today? Did I say or do something that might have hurt someone? Where did I fall short of the values I believe in? The Pope taught that such reflection should always be followed by a simple act of forgiveness. It might be as humble as saying, I recognize where I went wrong, and I want to do better tomorrow. The key is that these words come from the heart and are matched by a real intention to change. It's equally important to remember that this practice isn't just for major wrongdoings. Often it's the small lapses that weigh heaviest on us. A sharp word to a loved one, a moment of impatience at work, or a negative thought we let grow. Pope Francis explained that when we take time each night to recognize these things, something beautiful begins to happen. We become more aware of our actions as they unfold. It's like a light turns on inside us, helping us to choose better in the moment. This nightly habit can also transform our sleep. When we go to bed with a heart that has acknowledged and released the day's burdens, rest comes more easily, more deeply. The Pope likened it to lying down in a house that has been lovingly cleaned and put in order. The third and final word Francis encouraged us to speak before sleep is, I trust. Though it may seem simple, this word carries one of the most powerful acts we can offer at the end of the day, the surrender of our worries. He saw how many people lie awake at night, gripped by problems they cannot solve right then, concerns about work, family, health, or the future. He understood that these worries become like chains that hold us back from truly resting. That's why he offered a practical way to let go. The act of trust, he proposed, is not just a statement of faith. It's a mindful choice to let go, to release what weighs us down. It's like setting down a heavy bag we've been carrying all day. Each worry we hand over is one less weight pressing on our hearts. But how do we do this in a meaningful way? Pope Francis taught a simple yet profound method. Before going to sleep, identify the three main concerns occupying your mind. Don't downplay or explain them away. Just acknowledge them for what they are. Then comes the most important part. For each one, make a conscious statement of release. For example, this issue at work that's troubling me, I let it go. I can't fix it while I sleep, so I choose to trust. It takes wisdom to know that there's a time to act and a time to rest. Pope Francis often reminded us that we sometimes resist letting go because it feels like we're giving up or being careless. But nothing could be further from the truth. Handing over our concerns at night is an act of both emotional and spiritual maturity. It's recognizing that rest is necessary if we're to meet tomorrow with strength and clarity. One special practice he suggested is to imagine placing each worry into a box. As you close the lid, you make a conscious decision to trust that the answers will come in due time. Thank you for spending this quiet moment of reflection with us. If tonight's message helped bring a little more peace to your heart, we invite you to share your thoughts in the comments. What are the 3 words you carry with you before sleep? What helps you let go? We'd love to hear how you practice trust, forgiveness, and rest in your own life. And if you haven't already, we welcome you to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss any of these gentle reminders to slow down, reflect, and reconnect with what truly matters. May your night be light, your rest be deep, and your heart remain open to the quiet grace of each new day.